All right, good morning, everybody. Okay, a couple things real quick before we get to the class. If you have requested a Bible of the CSB translation, they are waiting for you at the Welcome Center. So they're $25, so go ahead and keep in mind, if you've asked for one, we have bought them for you, and you now owe the Lord $25. So... I'm just saying, I'm not going to, I'm not going to look at the $25 going in the contribution box during worship. So it's between you and God at that point. If you want to steal from the Lord, go ahead. We'll see. We're in the book of Judges. Let me see. Faye, can I borrow your Bible real quick? Your new one? Faye, can I borrow yours? Yeah. Okay. All right. This is a Bible nerd, so if you don't care about Bible nerd stuff, then that's fine. Just ignore me like you normally do for the next 5 minutes. But when you get a new Bible, especially modern ones, one thing that you may want to do if you want this thing to last you for a good long while is to break it in properly. So there's two things. Number one, you take it and you grab it and open both sides equally. You don't force it open, but you allow it to open naturally. Then you grab a little bit of pages on this side and on that side, and you go all the way through. You're not pressing hard, you're just trying to allow it to release naturally, because the glue in there will warm up over time. And so when you do this, you're breaking in the binding, so that way when you open it up to somewhere you've not been before later, you won't have a crack in the middle here, and it will rip the pages off the glue. So keep that in mind. That's just for the binding. And what's the best kind of oil to put on the outside of the leather? You guys know? You've never heard of that? It's palm oil. The oil from your palms, using the Word of God.
That's too good when you got them.
Well, I was an 18-year-old kid in a preaching school, and I had a teacher who would say that almost every class. Are you using your palm oil, brethren? I'm like, no, Okay, so that's that for you. The more you know. Okay, we're going to be in Judges chapter 6. We're talking about a guy named Gideon. And so far, the story, the narrative, is that we've got this guy Gideon. He is threshing wheat in a wine press to keep it hidden from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord tells him that he is going to be raised up as a judge, savior, redeemer of Israel. And he's full of questions. So I can relate to that, right? He's talking to this guy who he does not know or recognize he's an angel. And so he says, I'll be right back. He goes and prepares a meal for the angel. The angel says, put this on this stone. He takes the staff in his hand, touches the stone. It's consumed by fire, kind of an offering, right? And so he's freaking out because he saw an angel, he saw the Lord, and he is thinking he's going to die, as you do in the Bible. When you see an angel, you're going to die, no doubt. Verse 23, but the Lord said to him, peace be to you, or peace to you. Do not be afraid, for you will not die. So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, the Lord is peace. It is still in Ophrah of the Abiezrites today. So at the time of the writing of the Judges, that altar was still there. Right? That's what it says. All right. Theology according to Lisa. I read it. That's what it says. There it is. Okay. Verse 25. So, on that very night, the Lord said to him. So, you can look at this at one of two ways, right? So, you've got the Lord saying it to him. Either the angel told him this while he was there, because he was speaking as if he was God, right? The angel of the Lord, that we talked about that last week a good long bit. Or in some other way, the Lord communicated this message take your father's young bull and a second bull 7 years old. Why 7 years old? What's that? I mean, yeah. Just so happens to be 7 years old. I mean, Bible numbers are always fun because, it's 7. Of course it's 7. Couldn't be 8, couldn't be 6, had to be 7. Then tear down the altar of Baal that belonged to your father. Okay, so now we kind of get some context here of the family relationship. In the family of Gideon, the father was a Baal worshiper as well as maybe a Yahweh worshiper. All right. And cut down the Ashtoreth pole beside it. So we have Baal and we have Ashtoreth. This is kind of like you've got the male deity of the Canaanites, the bull god here, Baal. And then you've got Ashtoreth, which is kind of like the Aphrodite imagery in the Canaanite world. So fertility, springtime, the harvest, all those things are all connected to Ashtoreth and that worship there. Okay, verse 26. Build a well-constructed altar to the Lord your God on top of this mound where they were. Take the second bull. How old was the second bull? 7 years. All right. And offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the Ashtoreth pole you cut down. So what is the Lord doing here through Gideon? Big picture. Yeah, so if you've got a stone and a piece of wood here that someone carved, and then they're just gone the next morning, and the wood from one of these gods is being used as fuel for the fire to offer a burnt offering to the Lord, you're using the enemy to kind of work for God's favor, right? So he's taking things that are unclean, if you will, and making the household, this area, this village, kind of clean because the offering is to cover them, right? So you have this idea here of a microcosm of what happened in Egypt. So if you don't know already, all 10 plagues in Egypt for the Exodus event, all those things that took place, they were all in the face of a deity that was worshipped in Egypt at that time, right? So you have the frog god. Guess what happened? Well, all the frogs came everywhere and they were a nuisance, right? So the frog god did not reign that day. The Lord did. So a very small image of that. So you have Baal, you have Ashtoreth, they're being worshipped, and now they have no power because Baal statue is gone and the wood from Ashtoreth is being used to offer to the Lord. So small picture, that's kind of what it is. Okay, so here's Gideon doing that. Verse 27. So Gideon took 10 of his male servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his father's family and the men of the city to do it in the daytime, he did it at night. I mean, okay. This is not some epic hero like Moses or Joshua, standing up in the face of all the people of Israel and commanding what God said and then doing it, right, and proving God to be true. He's a scaredy cat. He does it at nighttime. He's afraid of the retaliation of his father's house and the men of the city because they revere, they worship these gods. He's not going to tear them down in their sight. He's going to do it secretly by night. That gives you a kind of a good idea of where the faith of Gideon is at this point in time in the story, right? It's a stark contrast compared to someone like Moses or Joshua or David later. So this guy, he's afraid, but he did what the Lord told him to do. So here we go, verse 28. When the men of the city got up in the morning, they found Baal's altar torn down and the Ashtoreth pole beside it cut down and the second bull offered upon the altar that had been built. Verse 29. They said to each other, who did this? And after they made a thorough investigation, they said, Gideon, son of Joash, did it. So the detectives here, they figured out who the culprit was. And then here's their response. Verse 30. Then the men of the city said to Joash, "Bring out your son. He must die because he tore down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it." So, no doubt, he was afraid of the people of the city because the men said, "Hey, we're going to kill this guy for doing that." And then here's Gideon's dad. But Joash said to all who stood against him, "Would you plead Baal's case for him? Would you save him? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead his own case because someone tore down his altar." I mean, all right. That's pretty good, right? That's logical to us, looking back at a group of Canaanites here who are worshiping Baal and Ashtoreth, and they say, well, if we defaced the altar of Baal, where is he? Why isn't he more upset? Why are you doing it for him? Now, the inverse of that would be if you're going to go into the holy place of God, the tabernacle at this time, and you're going to deface the tabernacle, what's going to happen to you? God will do it. No doubt about it. If you do it to Baal, nothing happens. What does that seem to indicate? Right, the obvious. Okay.
So why didn't he allow an altar or an Asherah pole on his property?
Well, you know. I mean, if there were only a commandment that said there's no graven images or something, you know, weird.
Also makes you wonder how big Gideon's family was, or how many servants his father had
Yeah.
to be able to stand up to all these guys coming up there saying, "Hey, we're going to put your son to death," and he saying, "No, we're going to put you to death."
Yeah, there's a lot of things not said in the text, but a couple of inferences that you could make is, well, you've got Gideon, the son of Joash. He's the one threshing the wheat. So they got wheat. And during this time, we've already read how scarce it was because they were being starved out by the Midianites who would come through and take all their animals, all their livestock, all their crops. So they've got food. So they got a pretty good piece of leverage over the people of the city. Also, he was able to pull in 10 servants of his family as well. They have 10 servants. So you can kind of tell here that the one calling the shots is Joash in this city.
Sounds like he was on the fence. He didn't, of course, want his son to die.
Yeah.
If he had been a serious worshiper, he would probably said, "Yeah, go ahead. That's what you got to do."
Yeah, if he was loyal to Baal or Asherah, then he would have, just given him over. But, didn't happen. Okay, so verse 32, he gets renamed because of course he does. That day Gideon was called Jerubbaal, since Joash said, "Let Baal contend with him," because he tore down his altar. So what's Jerubbaal mean? This is easier than you might think. Okay. Let Baal contend with him, right? So there you go. So we say Jerubbaal in English because it's easier to say than Jerubbaal, right? So there you go. He's renamed. Okay, so that's Act 1, if you will, of the saga of Gideon. I would like to say that as time progressed, he got more and more faith that Yahweh would be there because Yahweh was the God of the Israelites and of the entire earth. But we don't really see a great transformation in faith as we go on, and we'll see that as we progress. Act 2, verse 33. All the Midianites, Amalekites, and the people of the east gathered together, crossed over the Jordan, and camped in the Jezreel Valley. So they were across the other side of the Jordan, now they're on this side. Verse 34. The Spirit of the Lord enveloped Gideon, and he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezrites rallied behind him. So, okay. Typical judge stuff, right? We often see that the Lord raises up a judge, a savior, a redeemer, and then they're given the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of God, and they're able to overcome the enemy. So this is not anything really new for us. Okay, verse 35, he sent messengers throughout all of Manasseh who rallied behind him. He also sent messengers through Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, who also came out to meet him. So he's kind of unifying the fighting forces of Israel during this time by calling out for these different tribes to send their men to kind of kick back against the enemy. And then verse 36, then Gideon said to God, if you will deliver Israel by me, as you said, verse 37, I will put a wool fleece here on the threshing floor. If dew is only on the fleece, and all the ground is dry, I will know that you will deliver Israel by me, as you said. Okay. This is kind of a puzzling one to me, because we don't really see this going well for a lot of other guys who are called by God to do a thing, right? What we often find is God calling out an individual to be a leader of his people, and they are then left with the task of doing the thing God said to do, and if they do it in faith, then it works. If they doubt, if they question, if they wonder, if they drag their feet a little bit, then it doesn't work out the way that they would hoped it would have worked out, and God says you should have had more faith, right? But here we've got Gideon already doing it in his home city, his hometown, right? Casting out Baal and Ashtoreth, and God is now being worshipped here by offerings. And then you've got him being supported, enveloped by the Spirit of God. He's going out to war, and he wants extra confirmation. So before we move on from this phase one of this, what do you guys think about that? Yep.
He called his army to action, and then let's decide where we'll go.
Okay.
He's called the troops
Yeah, they're already coming.
rallied them, but
Now he's,
let's put God to test and see if we'll go.
yeah, okay.
He's struggling with his faith.
Yeah. Well, obviously, right?
Wants to do,
Yeah.
but he's not sure. That it's really not.
I've got a question about,
He jumped up just like Moses and said, I will do that.
yeah.
He's very Moses of him.
But, just double check here, God. Like, the thing that you want me to do, just to make sure that I'm the right guy. Already having the Spirit of God, just to make sure I'm going to leave this fleece on the ground, right? And if there's dew on it in the morning, but nowhere else, that's the sure sign. All right. Okay, makes sense, I guess. We see doubt here. We see testing God, which is his own study, right? But then you've got this happening. So, okay, here we go. And that is what happened, verse 38. He got up early in the morning. He squeezed the fleece and wrung dew out of it, filling a bowl with water. So, like, okay, hey, that's a weird thing, right? Nothing else is wet. Fleece is soaking wet. You're wringing out over a bowl. Bowl is full. Okay, God gave him one to kind of feel it out. And then, verse 39, Gideon said to God, don't be angry with me. Okay, so he knew. He seemed to know that testing Almighty God in heaven one time was, something. But here's, don't be angry with me. Let me speak one more time. Please allow me to make one more test with the fleece. Let it remain dry, and the dew be all over the ground. So a whole day goes by, and that's God's test. So allow it to be dry, not wet the next morning. Verse 40, that night God did as Gideon requested. Only the fleece was dry, and dew was all over the ground. Okay. What do you make of that?
Kind of reminds me of when Abraham was negotiating with
Yeah.
the angels of 55.
Yeah, we have the three angels. Let's call them that, sure. That go by and they meet Abraham, and he's encamped outside of Sodom and Gomorrah, or a good ways off. And Sarah's there, and she's renamed Laughter because she laughs at the people who say she's going to be pregnant because she's an old lady at this point. So, all funny things that happen to them. And then you've got 3 of them there eating a meal from Abraham and Sarah. And Abraham's like, what brings you around? Oh, we're going down Sodom and Gomorrah and going to kill them all. Like, oh, great. Well, what if there are righteous people like, Lot down there with his family? If 100 people are righteous, okay, sure. Okay, 75? Okay, 50? 25? So you get to the point where you have Abraham negotiating with God through the angels, and you kind of see the same kind of thing going on here where you have a human influencing deity, God. And then you have 3 angels there for the meal, and then you've got 2 angels going down. One's missing. Weird, right? So, same kind of deal going on. Any more thoughts?
God knew what was going on in Gideon's mind.
Yeah,
And he knew what he was going to be asking him to do, as we'll know in the next chapter.
yeah,
And by him really solidifying this for Gideon, Gideon didn't question all this other stuff that we're fixing to read about.
okay. So, again, keep in mind here the beginning story, like the origin story of Gideon, right? He was the one that was so scared to do what God told him to do to the altar of Baal and Ashtoreth. He did it by night secretly so he wouldn't get in trouble with the people of the town. Now he's going to war against the big enemy, right? So, again, I can see that. I'm thankful that God was gracious and didn't just kill him and bring somebody else up, right? That's probably good. So that's what took place.
God plays along in both of those scenarios.
Yeah, he does.
He'll play the game with you, so to speak.
Yeah,
He's long suffering.
he sure is. He suffers long. All right, chapter 7, verse 1. Drubbable, that is Gideon, which I love in the Hebrew because it shows you like the guy we just renamed. That guy, oh, by the way, if you don't read that part, it's Gideon. Okay. And all the troops who were with him got up early and camped beside the spring of Harod. Okay. The camp of Midian was north of them, below the hill of Morah in the valley. Then the Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many troops for me to hand the Midianites over to them, or else Israel might elevate themselves over me and say, I saved myself." Okay, classic God move here, right? You've got too many, you did such a great job of campaigning to get the troops to come out, you have too many of them now. I've never heard of any army saying they have too many troops, right, on the battlefield. But here God says, you've got too many. The problem is, if you go out there and you win because of your overwhelming numbers, you're not going to really put God right back in that proper place of veneration and worship. You're going to say, I saved myself. We fought this battle. We won. We're stronger. We're the best. Right? Okay. Verse 3. Now announce to the troops, whoever is fearful and trembling may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. First time ever you've got a military commander, Gideon, saying, hey, by the way, if you don't want to be here, you can go home. So 22,000 of the troops turned back and 10,000 remained. I mean, come on. I mean, God got what he wanted. But what an interesting dichotomy here. If you don't want to go to war and fight, you can go back home. 22,000 left and went back home. 10,000's left. I mean, if you would have stayed, you'd be one of the champions, right? You're like, I'm ready for this. Let's go. I've been ready. Let's go. 10,000 ready to go soldiers. What's God say? Verse 4. The Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many troops. Take them down to the water. I will test them for you there. If I say to you, this one can go with you, he can go. But if I say about anyone, this one cannot go with you, he cannot go. Simple. Right? Verse 5. He brought the troops down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, separate everyone who laps water with his tongue like a dog. Anyone do that? So when a dog wants water, what do? They lap it. They take their tongue, they dip it in there, a little spoon action, and they flick it back in their face, right? That's kind of the idea. The idea is that they are putting their face down into the water and just drinking freely. Okay. And all the rest of the troops knelt to drink water, right? So they are not just face first into the water, just letting it go. They are stooping down and they're bringing the water to them, would be the indication. Now, the number of those who lapped with their hands to their mouths was 300 men, and all the rest of the troops knelt to drink water. The Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you with the 300 men who lapped and hand the Midianites over to you, but everyone else is to go home. Okay. Now, an all-knowing God would have already known before the events took place how many people would have been cut out by the requirement of how they drank the water from the stream that day, right? So he no doubt knows that we have 300 people here instead of 10,000. All right. Gideon sent all the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 troops who took the provisions and their ram horns. The camp of Midian was below him in the valley. All right, so they're here. They're ready to go to war. You got about 10,000 people with you, and you send, all but 300 to their tents to just wait it out. The 300 you take with you. I remember doing a series, at least a 3-part series. So this is from 2010-ish, 9-ish. When I was a 20-year-old kid. And so there was a movie that came out called 300 from the guy who did Batman later and Superman later. And so I had the 300 graphic up there of the guys like throwing over the people on a cliff. And that was my sermon slide for preaching this story, right? To like 15 people. But still, they were there for it. I remember it. 300. Okay. That night the Lord said to him, get up and attack the camp, because I have handed it over to you. But if you are afraid to attack the camp, well, why would God assume that Gideon would be afraid? Well, I mean, he knows Gideon pretty well by this point, right? Hey, go and get rid of Baal and Ashtoreth. Okay, I'll do it by night so I don't get in trouble with the people. Okay. God, if you really want me to go, there's a fleece here. I want some weird stuff to happen, right? So, okay, if you're afraid to go down with Purah, your servant. Listen to what they say, and then you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So he went down because he was terrified, as he is, with Purah his servant, to the outpost of the troops who were in the camp. Now the Midianites, Amalekites, and all the people of the east had settled down in the valley like a swarm of locusts. Remember the introduction to Gideon, right? When they would go through and they would raid the Israelites, they'd take all their crops, kill all their animals, and so they were like a locust swarm. So that's what they're doing. They're getting ready to do that. And their camels were as innumerable as the sand on the seashore. I mean, hyperbole is great, right? So Maddie, she's not here. I can talk about her. So Maddie was reading something. She was reading one of her books. And she's getting to the longer books now, which is great because I've had enough of dog band comic books in my life. She's ready for real, full-on chapter books, right? And she got to a word, and it just, kids are great. And she goes, Dad, what does hyperbole mean? And I go, what's that? She's like, hyperbole. And I go, oh, I did the same thing when I was about your age. It's called hyperbole. The emphasis is right in the middle, not hyperbole, but it looks like that. There are some words you got to kind of hear them before you read them to know how to say it, right? So hyperbole, to emphasize, right? To be silly here. That's how the camels were. Verse 13. When Gideon arrived, there was a man telling his friend about a dream. I mean, does anyone like hearing about what someone else dreamed about? Anyone enjoy that here?
Only if it's very interesting.
Are any dreams interesting ever when you hear them, third party? I mean, to make me go to sleep, all you have to do is say, let me tell you about a dream I had. I'm like, okay, all right, great. So Gideon's here. There's a guy. He overhears talking about a dream. He said, listen, I had a dream. The guy dozed off. A loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp, struck a tent, and it fell. The loaf turned the tent upside down so that it collapsed. I mean, pretty decent dream for as dreams go. It's not that bad, right? His friend answered, this is nothing less than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has handed the entire Midianite camp over to him. Cool, right? This guy apparently is aware that they're going to go to battle, that Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite, is there, and he's scared of it. Like, that's the interpretation he got from the loaf of bread story, right? So Gideon was scared, because always he was scared, and he goes down here, he overhears about this dream, and he knows they're terrified of him. Encouraging, right? Okay. When Gideon heard the account of the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship. All right, we've got Gideon. He's moving up here, right? He saw an angel of the Lord, was terrified because he thought, I'm going to be dead. Like, I saw God, I'm afraid. Did the thing by night, got over it. People rallied behind him. He got all the Israelites there to come to their need. Great. He is moving up in faith. So far. He returned to Israel's camp and said, get up, for the Lord has handed the Midianite camp over to you. Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies. I'd imagine with 100, 100, 100. Okay. And gave each of the men a trumpet in one hand and an empty pitcher with a torch inside in the other hand. Interesting tactic. Verse 17, watch me, he said, and do what I do. When I come to the outpost of the camp, do as I do. When I and everyone with me blows our ram's horns, you also are to blow your ram's horns all around the camp. Then you will say, for the Lord, Yahweh, and for Gideon. Gideon and the 300 men who were with him went to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. So midnight-ish. Okay. After the sentries had been stationed, they blew their ram's horns and they broke the pitchers that were in their hands. Okay, so what's inside the pitcher? Fire, right? So you break it, loud noise, clay, terracotta, right? You break it open and there's fire there, okay? They held their torches in their left hands and their ram's horns to blow in their right hands. They shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Each Israelite took his position around the camp. The entire Midianite army began to run, and they cried out as they fled. When Gideon's men blew their 300 ram's horns, the Lord caused the men in the whole army to turn on each other with their swords. They fled to the acacia house in the direction of Zerah, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah, near Tabbath. Then the men of Israel were called from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites. Okay, so you have the whole army here. Most of them are sound asleep. And they are woken up by guys blowing on horns, yelling out for the Lord and for Gideon, breaking their terracotta, and they seem like they're surrounded by a huge force, right? They wake up half asleep, terrified, take their swords, start killing each other. They flee. Now they're being pursued by the Israelites. Cool. Okay, questions, comments?
Kind of thinks one of those old Western movies where there's a bar fight and it's just a big melee where somebody bumps into each other,
Uh-huh.
somebody else, and then just everybody, doesn't matter who you're supporting or what. It just gets crazy. I can assume that's kind of what it was, is they just
Yeah.
in the confusion.
I mean, you couldn't make this up, right? Like, that's a terrible tactic to go against the entire forces with 300 people. It doesn't make any sense. And that's the way God wanted it. It was not possible by human effort. Now, they had 32,000 troops. They could have overwhelmed them and lost a lot of Israelites in the process, but that would have been their own strength, their own forces, right? So,
Good military strategy.
I mean, yeah, it worked out, you know. This is an unusual upset, right? The underdog won here. Okay, here we go. This is where it gets a little weird. If it wasn't weird already, now it's getting weird. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim with this message: come down to intercept the Midianites and take control of the water courses ahead of them as far as Beth-barah in the Jordan. So he's like, well, they're going that way. They're fleeing. Let's send a messenger out that Ephraim can come down and take captive and kill the guys that are fleeing. Okay. So all the men of Ephraim were called out. They took control of the water courses as far as Beth-barah in the Jordan. They captured Oreb and Zeb. It's just, what names, right? Oreb and Zeb, the two princes of Midian. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, which is, of course, why it's called the rock of Oreb, right? He was killed there. And Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. I love it when they're writing it after the fact. They've already renamed these places, and the guy okay, all right. While they're pursuing the Midianites, they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. Okay. In chapter 8, what we're going to see is a little bit of humanness of Gideon come out again. So far, we've seen him kind of rise in faith with God. We're going to see him have some issues here, faith-wise and trust-wise. And then at the end, we're going to see a huge upset. So we're going to pause here for the morning. Thank you for your time and your attention. We'll pick up here in chapter 8, Lord willing, next week. Thank you.